Well, I took the principal decision to go on retirement at the end of the term about 2.5 years ago, when we were at our Congress and I didn't make myself available for elections to the Central Committee then. And I think that that is correct, because one approaches an age where, first of all, it is time to let go and give others the opportunities that you yourself had. And secondly, age is not going unnoticed. Not that I'm feeling bad, but another term is a pretty long period of time, and one is at risk of taking bad decisions or being not as thorough as you want to be in a very responsible job like a minister is. And I didn't want to damage my integrity or my being a thorough minister by staying on too long. And thirdly, I think it's always a good decision to leave a post like that voluntarily instead of being told to go. And I'm very happy that it happened this way, and I had the opportunity to decide for myself what I want to do, whether I want to stay or not. So I took the decision to retire and enjoy my rest period that is left to me.
Indeed. Very interesting. Diving into one of the things that you're so passionate about is water, especially rural water distribution. Speaking under correction, during your tenure, 3.8 billion was spent on infrastructure projects such as Ongwena and Rundu water treatment. We've also seen you had meetings last year or the other year with the Angolan counterpart to treat the Omusati canal. With these projects, what do you say are some of the achievements? How far are these projects? What do you envision that they do after you are gone? I think these are some of the legacies that one would say you are leaving behind.
Well, water is probably the key enabler for any development. Without water, you are stalling any development. You are in fact also ending life with no water, because that's an essential. So I believe that water, for that reason, must always be high on the priority of any development agenda, whether it's in a developing country or in a developed country. If you don't look after a very sound, secure water supply, which is both for human consumption but also for the environment, because water is also necessary for an environment to remain healthy, then you are looking for trouble. And I'm very happy to say that importance of water was recognized when we approached the Development Bank for that loan, the 3.8 billion loan for an upgrade of the bulk water supply infrastructure, which included some rural water components. Now, those projects are now by and large implemented, and I think we secured with that, not only for the northern part but also for the west coast and the central part, a secure water supply from the bulk point of view until 2037. After that, it needs to be revamped yet another time. We must not forget that our population is growing. We have doubled. The infrastructure that we inherited was about 70 years old, and it was designed for a population that was less than half of what we are now. And obviously that started to show some serious constraints. You will remember the water outages that we had, the water crisis that we had in Windhoek, the water crisis that we had at the coast. So all that has been fixed from a bulk point of view. And I'm very proud to say that I was in part of that and running that. On the rural water supply, I believe that, well, let me say, overall, I think it's a great achievement that wherever there's a tap, you can drink the water. We are one of the few, if not the only African country that can say, when you open a tap, wherever you see it, it's drinkable water. So our safety standards are good. They are excellent. They are, for African standards, extraordinary, I believe. Our supply of water to people overall is just over 90%. In the rural areas, it's now 87%. So we are doing pretty well in getting secure water to people. It is those remaining 10, 13% that we have to look at in the rural areas, because it's not a question how difficult it is. It is a question whether you have water or not. That counts. And that is why we have to develop water supplies for that 13% of people that are not enjoying a secure water supply. So our importance for rural water supply needs to be equally beefed up, just we did with bulk water supply. And then, of course, the black sheep in the herd is sanitation. We are lagging behind, and that needs to be picked up, because a poor sanitation system, of course, harbors bad risks. It's health risks, it's environmental risks, which a modern society cannot survive in. So proper sanitation works are good. And we hopefully move in a direction where we do not treat sewage and other effluents as waste and throw it away, but as a raw water source that can be reused. Hence the upgrade of the sewage works in Windhoek, and we will be able to cover over 30% of Windhoek's demand from reclaimed water, which I think is the modern and the environmental sustainable way to treat water coming out of sewage works.
Another part of our discussion will focus on land distribution, communal land, farming land, of course, with addressing the historical imbalances. And then also, one would remember the 571 farms that were, or resettlement farms that were acquired since independence. To look into this and just to give us highlights on some of the things that you would say during your tenure or during your time as a minister you've achieved, and hoping that the next minister should take, or the next minister's next leadership should take up from where you've stopped.
Yes, land resettlement, or the balancing out of availability of land as a means of production, is not only a political priority, it's also an economic priority. And let me start with the political one. Yes, we have a very skew economy. We have a very skew land ownership in the country, and that has been created by both colonial areas that we went through, by the German colonial area and the South African ones. Black people were deprived of their land, their livelihood, and there were forced removals, and there were genocides, all ugly things that should never have happened. And that deprived the majority of our people of their livelihood and land. That needs to be corrected. Now the land reform program must address that, but you cannot address it only by availing land. The productivity of that land, which creates the livelihood for the resettled people, must also be assured. And I believe that our resettlement efforts were weak in assuring that the productivity of the land that we acquired and utilized for resettlement purposes were indeed productive. There are some exceptions. Some resettlement farmers are doing very well, but the majority are struggling. They are not doing well. So the way forward is, I believe, two ways. We must make more resources available to acquire land, because the whole resettlement process is too slow. to be a meaningful tool for redistributive actions in the land sector. We are doing not enough. So resources must be improved to do that, and acquisitions must be significantly increased. Once we have achieved that, then I think we will start to see meaningful distribution changes in the land, which we haven't seen up to date to a significant point of view. As I said, the new resettlement policy that we approved and developed during my predecessor's time, but we managed to get it over the line, is aiming at giving better post-resettlement support. It aims at being more efficient in deciding who would be the beneficiary and for what purpose. Is it merely for a housing purpose, or is it for a small-scale farming purpose, or is it for a large-scale farming purpose? Those categories will enable us now to distinguish and deal with a bulk demand wherever it comes from society. If the bulk is sophisticated large farming operations, then we can put our resources there. If it is for housing and smaller scale agriculture, we can put our resources there. So it is now giving us the flexibility to decide where it would be most meaningful to do the most resettlement. It is a complex matter, but it is doable, and I hope that this new flexibility and a commitment for better resourcing this activity would take us where we want to be, and that is at a more balanced land ownership that is productive. And let me add at the end, the productivity is really important, because agriculture is the mainstay of the real economy. That's where people are making their living. It is not in mining also. You can also do that, but the bulk of the people are in agriculture. And agriculture, and with that food security, is a high priority and must be a high priority for everybody. And resettlement can help us to achieve that much faster than if we perpetuate this farming system that we have now, which is a dual system, a communal system, and commercial system, both of them very it's not an intensive farming system, it's an extensive farming system where people just herd cattle on grazing and bring it back. So it's a livestock farming system which must be diversified. We must add crop production, we must add other economic activities on the same land so that it becomes more productive, gives more people a chance to make a decent living.
Indeed. I think while we are still on that question, we've seen, I think, the last days of the 7th Parliament, you were about to table a land bill. One would want to understand some of its primer focus. We, of course, saw the motivation that you've given, but what are some of the key things that you saw or that the ministry saw were of importance? And is it perhaps passed on to the new administration, or where does it then, where does it stop?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, the process to draft the bill took too long, and that's why I was only able to table it in the last few weeks of the 7th Parliament. It's a crucial bill to assist us in delivering land reform. Now, what the bill does, as I said in my motivation, it consolidates the communal and commercial land reform acts into one. It gives the minister who is responsible for land reform the mandate to deal on all land matters. It prohibits foreign ownership of any land, that is in communal land and in commercial farming land. There are some exemptions possible. So it does not prohibit land ownership in municipal areas and so on, but agricultural land is not anymore available to foreign ownership. I think that is absolutely correct, because land will become a very, very scarce commodity when we see how fast population is growing worldwide, and there are many foreign interests in land. We need to protect our land that we have for our own citizens, and I think that is now anchored in the Act. We should hold on to that and not becoming soft on it and being induced with money to part with that asset. It is not to be replaced. That's the core of it. You cannot replace land with anything. So we must keep it for ourselves. Then there are a number of administrative issues that are streamlined, and that is how communal land rights are treated, how they are regulated, how commercial land rights are treated and regulated, and who has the power to change that. So it's an act that tries to be comprehensive with all land matters, and the main objective is nothing else but, yes, get land reform going, get agricultural productive systems going on that land that is available, and reserve it for as much as possible for our own citizens to make a living off.
Yes, I think part of my question was, do we still see this bill being tabled by...
Well, it is tabled. It has lapsed,
Okay.
sorry. And I hope it will be retabled right now. You know, my successor can just take the bill again and table it. It's done.
Indeed. Moving on to another part of our interview, like I briefed you in the beginning, is to look into the challenges that has significantly faced the meat corporation. We saw the decline in market share and financial difficulties. And we saw, of course, you've advocated for its restructuring and diversification. What specific strategies do you believe are essential of Meatco's revitalization, and how it can regain actually its pivotal role in the Namibian meat industry?
Yeah, well, Meatco was structured as a cooperative of farmers or of livestock producers. And that is basically still what it is. Now, I think when things went wrong is when it was declared a state-owned enterprise. It was never a state-owned enterprise. But the state had very significant public interest in that entity, because it is a key factor in how productive and how well-yielding the livestock sector is. Because you cannot do anything with your cattle if you do not push them into a value chain. And Meatco was the first entry into that value chain, where your animals were converted into food. And other products like leather and bone meal and whatever you derive from livestock. So that is why the state had an interest in making sure that Meatco stays an entity that takes off the surplus production that the farmers produce. Now, there were a number of efforts to restructure Meatco, that the state becomes a real shareholder in it and enables it to determine how it should react to certain demands from the market. No, they didn't go well. They were not appreciated. And Meatco remained that cooperative that is based on farm ownership, not farm ownership of cattle and livestock producers overall. Now, I think there was a a management lapse that caused the Meatco to run into financial problems. And that caused that they suffered severe cash flow problem. So the farmers couldn't get the money for the animals in good time. It went further on. The corporation then put pressure on price and dropped prices for the farmers. So the producers were suffering badly because they didn't first get the money for the animals, and then they got it late and too little. And all the surplus that was theoretically possible by having access to the best paying markets was eaten up by very bad management structures that were in place. And I believe that the core of them are still there. I'm not seeing a reform of Meatco that does away with all that money-consuming blubber that is around it that does not do any good for the livestock sector. That must be cut away. The other point I believe is crucial to note is that Meatco is a key for livestock production. Now, to remove Meatco as a state-owned enterprise into the Ministry of Finance and Public Enterprises deprived the Ministry of Agriculture, where the policy for livestock is developed, to have direct access to policy making in that very, very important entity. You know, farming these days does not end at your farm gate. Agriculture is much more integrated into the economy than just being a farmer and your interest ending at the farm gate. So I'm very happy when the President announced that all these entities are reverting back to their home ministries, and I think that that is an important step that makes it possible that Meatco can be doing better. But I think the focus must be on optimizing the value farmers get for their surplus production. And I'm saying it because Namibia's beef production is producing huge surpluses. 70% of our beef production we cannot absorb it in the local market or in the SADC market, so we have to export it, and we have the best paying markets available to us. So the core of the business must be how to optimize that availability of surplus, get the best prices, and filter some of the proceeds back to the farmers themselves, that they can cope with very, very stringent standards, with very stringent export conditions that they have to maintain to remain in that marketplace. They need to have support to do what is needed to have the highest standard of meat accepted in Europe, in America, in China, in Japan, wherever we have access to. So there's a lot of work to be done. I think they are still in financial problems. That needs to be solved first. They must get out of that slump. They must become profitable so that they can punctually pay the best price that is available, and over and above that, support the farmers to maintain Meatco's position in the international market.
Indeed. My second last question, Uncle Calle, is your dreams and your aspirations, your hopes for the Namibian economy. Of course, the agriculture economy has been something that has been so close to your heart. We've also seen you at finance, so these are some of the things that you've spoken about. Maybe some specific areas where you believe future leaders need to really focus on to improve sectors of agriculture, sectors of economy and finance. You said you were so excited to hear that the SOEs are finally, back on its own ministry, so they are managed better.
Well, I think when we talk about our economy, our biggest challenge in the economy is inequality. Namibians don't share equally in the proceeds of the economy. And our fiscal policy should change from doing things that are nice to have to doing things that we really have to make an environment possible where the hitherto left outs are roped in and get a fair share of the economy's wealth. I believe that that is to be achieved if the real economy is growing. Agriculture, tourism, those are components of the real economy that can pick up people. That's where you find the jobs. If we have a fiscal policy that only satisfies investors' needs in the banking sector or in the oil sector or in the mining sector, we will get GDP growth, but we will not get real growth in the economy that is needed to address inequality. So inequality is what our Achilles heel is, and we must find real solutions. Banks, mines, oil rigs, they get some employment going through their provider industries. But because Namibia, being a country that does not consume what it produces, and it produces what it doesn't consume, we must look into that value chain development when we talk about extractive industries to put much more pressure. And I think that is the want of the new president too, that our value chains are developed. But then we must have policies that not only the value chain is growing, but that value that is so created is shared better. Because at the moment, mines export their value. The banks export their value. It's not staying here. And the diamond industry is the best example I can think of. They were mining here for 125 years. What is the value that they have created here that is now fairly shared by all? There's nothing, very little.
Okay. My last question is on you as, or your personal focuses moving forward. That's post-retirement. Last time, like I made a joke in our Africa conversation to say, we want to see you, photographing. You said you would become a photographer, but maybe apart from that, the transition from public office, where do we see you next? You also posted one day on your social media when you said, look, I am still imagining how I'll wake up on Monday not going to my office. Personally, what are you focusing on now?
Yeah, well, it is still like I posted there. When you wake up and you realize, well, there is nothing to do, while you come from a very busy schedule where you knew you have to be at many places at the same time sometimes. It takes a little bit of an adjustment, and I have not made that adjustment as yet. I am still trying to find a way to get into a new routine as quickly as possible. But it is on the other hand a relieving feeling to know, well, I'm off the hook. I'm now on my own. I can do what I want to do, and I don't have to focus on things that others want me to do. No? It's a very liberating kind of feeling, and I enjoy that. But what I want to do it with my free time now is, yes, photography was always a hobby for me. I believe that photography is a tool that brings art and science very close to each other, and it's a very, very powerful media of expression. I know, the saying that the picture tells a story much better than 1,000 words is very true. And you can explain science, you can explain many things through good photography. I'm also close to natural science because that's what I study. So I like to photograph nature, what there is, whether it's plants, trees, animals, insects, whatever, for the record of it. So there are a number of activities within photography that I do. Landscape photography is one of the things that I think is what I also enjoy. But it is not only photography. I also want to sit down and write something. And I think my photos collection will help me to lighten up a dry text with some nice photos. It is the easy thing to take a photo, but to make that photo attractive and make it bring it in a shape that it is appropriate for sharing with other people is the trick that one needs to master, and that is what I want to concentrate on.
No, not to preempt you what you're going to do. You say you want to write something. Are you maybe comfortable telling us what is it that you're going to focus on?
Well, of course, one wants to write what you have done, the opportunities that you have been given and what you have done with it. So it's a kind of a biography, but I'm not so sure yet whether I must put it into a shape of a normal biography or whether I must do it in a little bit different shape. I'm thinking of that, to have different separate publications that touch on separate issues, and then a concluding chapter where you tie the ends between all these different activities that we had. So writing is, yes, what we have achieved, the politics of the country, the natural resources of the country, how they were managed and what we need to do with them. So it's a very large, very fascinating topic that I'm sitting with, where I have reasonable knowledge about, that I want to share. It's the water sector, it's the agricultural sector, it's coming from the fishing sector, so the oceans are an important sector. They are now a new focus. It is our people, how they utilize land, it's the land itself. So there are many of these facets that I want to mold into one story.
Uncle Calle, for your time, thank you very much. We are hoping to get so much mentorship from you as you go on your retirement. We appreciate you.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm looking forward to be around. I will stay around and say whatever I think I feel or is appropriate to be said. So I'm not down and out. I'm out, but still okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Right.